special Halloween edition of Neighborhood Views What's New. Go behind the scenes of one of the state's most haunted locations, the USS Salem in Quincy, and learn about the world-class haunted house attraction called Ghost Ship Harbor. Travel back in time with Salem Witch Trials expert Kathryn Rutkowski, who will talk about the spooktacular new event called Haunting at Witch Hill in Topsfield. And chat with Halloween Nation author Lesley Bannatyne about trends associated with All Hallows Eve. What's new for Halloween? Here are your ghoulish co-hosts, Sharon, Fillyaw, and Sam Baltrusis from MATV's Neighborhood View.
My name is Sam Baltrusis. I'm the coordinator of MATV's Neighborhood View. Joining me, of course, is my lovely co-host, Sharon Fillyaw.
Hey, Sam.
How you doing, Sharon?
Pretty good. How do you like this set?
It's pretty spectacular.
This is pretty neat. I like it. I like it a lot.
So we have a clip on the USS Salem. The USS Salem is one of the most haunted locations in Massachusetts. In fact, it was in my book, 13 Most Haunted in Massachusetts.
Yes, and I must admit, I spoke to some of the people, who worked on the boat, and they actually relayed to me some of the stories about, the hauntings and the sounds that they heard. It was a little spooky, when, being on the ship.
Well, I'll tell you, Sharon actually went down like in the bowels of the vessel.
Yeah.
And there's a place called the Butter Room. So tell me about the Butter Room.
Well, the Butter Room is where I believe there was an earthquake in Greece in 1953 where the USS Salem was dispatched to help the victims and survivors. And they actually placed many, many dead bodies in the freezer.
Yeah, there were over 400 bodies kept in the morgue area, the meat locker, and they call it the Butter Room because that's where they made butter.
Right, and it's just a little spooky. And I'm usually not frightened of things like that. But hearing the stories of from the people who work on the ship, like going down, you could kind of feel this. I don't know, this presence. It was really interesting.
Well, Sharon, actually, did you meet somebody while you were on the vessel?
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Well, I got this phone for you.
Oh!
This is.
Oh my goodness! Should I answer it?
Yes.
Hello. It's Captain Pipes. Hi. How are you?
She actually did meet a man on the USS Salem.
I'm so excited.
Hi, this is Sharon Fillyaw for MATV's Neighborhood View. What's new for Halloween? We're here on the USS Salem for the month-long Ghost Ship Harbor event. Now, this ship is haunted, so let's go inside and see what's going on. Here with me now is nationally acclaimed entrepreneur Jason Egan, hailing from Las Vegas. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on. This is awesome.
It sure is. Now, the USS Salem, which is where you're having your Ghost Ship Harbor event, was one of a few locations that you had to choose from. Why did you finally choose the USS Salem?
We kind of fell into this location. Originally, we were going to do this event on an island, and we've been working on it for 2 years. But then we came across the ship, and I never in a million years thought that they would actually give us the ship to do this event on.
Wow.
And we came through, Matt, my business partner, and myself, we came through, and they said, that's no problem. And I was like, okay, you're about to give us this 800-foot long haunted battleship,
right,
and just let us do our thing on it. They're like, absolutely, because the city of Quincy wants to increase tourism, and they get it, so they really do. And that's what's important for events like this, to bring in people from all over the place, to increase revenue in hotels, restaurants, and everything else. And of course, increase revenue for the ship as well, too. And have good, fun, safe events. And what better place than this giant, iconic battleship? I mean, this thing is huge. Like I said, nearly 800 feet long, 10 decks high. I mean, it's an impressive ship. And not to mention, is what I'm understanding, is it's one of the top 10 scariest or most haunted places in Massachusetts, which is awesome. So you can't beat that. Having an iconic location known as USS Salem, named the USS Salem, and then be extremely haunted as well. That's cool. When you can hit all that stuff, all in one, it's a fun place. And there's so much room for expansion. I mean, if we wanted to, we could probably do 10 haunted houses on this ship.
Ooh.
So it leaves us for so many things in the future years. So we're going to do 3 attractions this year. We're going to do 2 haunted houses and our paranormal tour. So it's going to be killer. I can't wait. It's going to be under a tight timeline. We're working our butt off to get it done. But
I bet.
yeah, it's intense, but it's going to be good. We built haunted houses all around the world. I built them in Las Vegas, for 14 years,
right.
Hong Kong, New York City, Nebraska, where I'm from. But, Boston's been one of those cities, New England, Quincy area has been one of those cities on my list. So it's amazing that, this opportunity came up. So it's a huge opportunity. Literally, it is huge. And I always say, it's funny, now I can use the saying, we're going to need all hands on deck to get this thing done. We really are. There's a lot of stuff going on, but a lot of moving parts, but it's going to be killer.
With me now is Matt DiRoberto, the Director of Operations, the Nerve Center of Ghost Ship Harbor. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So now, I was talking to your partner, Jason Egan, about how you came to choose the USS Salem. You had originally thought about using an island, there were different locations, and you finally settled on the USS Salem. So what led you to that?
So, yeah, this has been a 4-year journey, basically, trying to find, a location to, bring a world-class haunt to this market. Jason and I hooked up 4 years ago, and we first tried to do it. Actually, we tried to do it at Castle Island, and then that's how we ended up at George's Island. Almost pulled it off there. Didn't end up happening, and then we went back to Castle Island. Got real close to doing it there, and didn't end up happening. But through that course, we were trying to figure out, all right, where else could we do it? Once Fright Island or Castle Island, we saw it wasn't going to happen, and a couple people mentioned to me about USS Salem, and I ended up calling up Mike Condon here, the executive director. We hit it off, and we worked out an arrangement pretty quickly. And it was for the best. I mean, the ship's haunted, which adds a whole other element to it. It has a ton of infrastructure already.
Right.
So at Castle Island, we were going to have to bring in all this stuff. We don't have to do as much to make it look awesome here. I mean, the ship looks awesome already.
Hi. I just heard something. We're here on the USS Salem. It's supposedly haunted. I don't know what that was, but I'm getting the heck out of here.
Welcome back to the special Halloween edition of What's New. Joining me, of course, is my coworker from Essex National Heritage, Kathryn Rutkowski.
Hello.
Hello. So she's dressed in period garb. Let's talk about the events coming up. We have the haunting at Witch Hill.
Mm-hmm. So Essex Heritage is hosting a house party, and they are using the former home of the gentleman, railroad tycoon T.W. Pierce. And previously that property had been home to a number of other prominent people. Benjamin Crowninshield from Salem, the family moved out there. And also back in the 1600s, Mary Estey's son, Isaac Estey, was living on that property as well. And when Mary Estey was accused of witchcraft, she was hiding in the basement of that house when they came to take her.
So Kathryn and I do tours in Salem together, and we do the Myths and Misconceptions tour. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the myths related to the 1692 witch trials, what would you say are some of the biggest myths?
I mean, one of the biggest myths I think that people have, especially coming to Salem, is that everything froze in time.
Yeah.
That everything is just there, and they expect to see every little house and things, and they forget that things have moved on, and the witch trials was such a short time period in Salem's history. It was 9 months, and so to think that everything just sort of froze in time is really, kind of funny to think. But I'm always trying to remind people, like, well, time moved on and things changed, and so it is a little difficult for people to understand sometimes because they hear so much about it and then show up and it's not what they expect.
I get a lot on my tours. People want to know where the gallows was
especially.
in Salem.
Mm-hmm.
So do we know where the gallows is?
I mean, there are historians that are doing research today. Until I see proof, I'm not really convinced. But they are doing a lot of research about the general area, but so much of the landscape, again, has changed that it is really hard to sort of pinpoint exactly where that area might be.
Well, the local legend, or like the thing is, we've known for years, and it's behind a Walgreens, actually, where it's called Proctor's Ledge, mm-hmm. and that's where they supposedly pinpointed it, but as you and I both know, that's probably not a sexy location.
No. Not at
behind
all.
a Walgreens. But so speaking of Salem, like because you live in Salem, like what are some of the things, like advice to people coming to Salem for Halloween? What would you recommend?
Definitely don't drive in. Take the train.
Take your broom, maybe.
Yeah, maybe fly in. That's the best idea. It is very difficult, getting around, but I think, prepare that you are going to wait in line for a lot of things, and, just make sure that you have enough money. There's a lot of things to do.
I think in Salem, my recommendation is to go not on Halloween. Go the week before, go the weeks before. I'm giving a tour called the Salem Curse Tour. So we're going to go to the Gardner Pingree house, which is where Captain Joseph White was murdered. And that's like a 1800s era crime. And that's kind of my garb is 1800s era. So that's interesting. And then we're also going to talk about things in addition to the Salem Witch Trials. I'm so excited to actually focus on something other than what happened in 1692.
Yes.
So it's kind of exciting. All right. So in regards to getting tickets for the Topsfield events,
yes, you can order them online through the Essex Heritage website. That's www.essexheritage.org, and we have a link to there. You can also order your tickets at the Salem Visitor Center in Salem. We're at 2 New Liberty Street, so you can go right in there and order your tickets right there with me.
All right, so any other insider information regarding Salem? Like if you were coming from out of town, what would you recommend to them?
I mean, I would just say definitely walking around, seeing the sights. Wear a costume. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of times where you see adults in costumes and they go all out. So that's really the best advice, is definitely just enjoy, have fun.
So speaking of costume, what era is your costume
Well,
from?
technically this is sort of a mix. I'm wearing mostly Revolutionary style. I make a lot of my own clothes. I'm a Revolutionary War reenactor.
Ooh.
But it's sort of, it looks a little bit similar to what a lot of the Puritans would have worn, They did wear colors and things. People always think they wore all black and brown, but they did wear some colors, definitely covering the hat, the hair. Very typical of the time period. I probably will be wearing this for the event, even though it's not period appropriate. But
well, when I first saw Kathryn, I thought you were Bridget Bishop. Because Bridget Bishop actually was known. She was the first woman to be executed and the only one to be executed by herself. So what are your thoughts on Bridget Bishop specifically? We kind of bonded on Bridget.
Yeah, definitely. She was definitely an outsider, I think, from the perspectives, reading about her. Everyone always makes her out to be this young, sexy, buxom woman, but she was actually an older, in her almost 50s woman. And she wasn't really fitting into the Puritan ideals at the time, dressing above her station. The Puritans were very strict about certain colors. You could wear colors, but purple and red were reserved for wealthy people. And so Bridget Bishop was always known for wearing red, and she was sort of a middle-class woman. So that might have been what got people upset about her, dressing like that. So I think that might have been a lot of the reason why she sort of stood out. Especially in Salem, especially when there were rules about what colors you could wear for your stations, and people had gotten arrested for things like that, especially over in Saugus when they had the ironworks. There was all sorts of records from the ironworks of people being brought into court for wearing the wrong style of clothing, the wrong colors for their class.
Well, one of the things, when I was giving ghost tours, and there's a reason why I don't give ghost tours in Salem anymore. I was giving a tour. I was in front of the Lyceum, which is supposedly where her apple orchard was. Well, I was told that that's where her tavern was. And as someone who talks about the myths and misconceptions, she wasn't the tavern owner. That was Sarah Bishop. And so Bridget Bishop's often confused with Sarah Bishop. And so I say it was her tavern, and then an apple mysteriously rolls out of the Lyceum area from the corner. And I'm mortified. And I feel like that Bridget Bishop was telling me that this was not her tavern, this was her apple orchard. So, Bridget, hopefully you will not haunt me when I give my curse tour in Salem. But thank you so much, Kathryn. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm the author of 15 paranormal books, including Bones in the Basement. Oh, I'm so excited. They're doing complete renovations of the entire house. It's no longer yellow, it's now in beautiful gray, and the restorations are taking place right now as we speak. I believe that this week they're going to be getting in the iron work for the basement windows, and they've done a lot of painting on the outside. The inside renovations are still in process, and they are doing paranormal investigations there, and they say the activity has ramped up immensely.
The most haunted location in Massachusetts? At number 1 is the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion in Gardner, Mass. Yes, welcome to my nightmare. Recently purchased by Rob Conti, the New Jersey-based owner of Dark Carnival, this historic structure was built in 1875 by Sylvester Knowlton Pierce, the founder of the S.K. Pierce & Son Chair Company. The home has had several famous guests such as P.T. Barnum, Norman Rockwell, Betty Davis, and President Calvin Coolidge. Several ghosts are said to haunt this mansion, including S.K. Pierce's first wife, Susan, who passed away of a mysterious illness only 3 weeks after moving in. And then there's Nanny Mattie Cornwell. She loved the mansion so much, in fact, she continued to reside here in the afterlife. S.K. Pierce himself is also said to haunt the mansion with other ghostly members of the Pierce family. Rob Conti plans to turn this into a haunted attraction next October and is looking to book this extremely haunted home for overnight guests. A house where guests check in but never check out. They're dying to have you stay.
Like, what would you say is the most haunted location in Massachusetts?
The haunted Victorian mansion.
We just came back. From the haunted Victorian. So tell me, like, Joni is the expert on the Victorian mansion, and there's just an energy that emanates from that place. Tell me about like the latest with the Victorian mansion.
Well, it's been sold, which I'm actually pretty excited about. I interviewed the two owners, or one of the owners earlier, and he's a nice guy. They're going to turn it into not a bed and breakfast, but they're going to turn it into a rental. So they're going to do all the renovations, which is really nice. They're working on the eaves soon and going to repaint it and do everything that needs to be done. And then they're going to open it up in a year for overnight rentals, and then in October it's going to be like a haunted house event.
And that was a wonderfully spooky update on SK Victorian Mansion. Here with me now is renowned author Lesley Bannatyne, who is the author of one of several books, one of them being Halloween Nation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much. Well, you know, we were talking and you've loved Halloween like practically all your life when you were a little girl.
Yes, absolutely.
So we were talking a little bit before we came on about the trends that are kind of preeminent in Halloween right now. And you said it's going to go back not to the 80s, but a little bit before. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Well, Halloween when I was a kid was for children, and in the 70s adults started to celebrate it again. And with the adults came a whole lot of horror and slasher movies, and all of popular culture just got a little bit bloodier in the 80s.
Right.
And Halloween absorbed a lot of that because it's a good horror holiday.
Right.
We saw a lot more blood and gore and violence in Halloween imagery. It got a lot darker.
Right, the whole Halloween franchise with Jamie Lee Curtis, right?
Yes, yes, that was the first movie. 1978 was the first movie to tie the holiday Halloween to Halloween, the horror story.
Right.
And it brought a whole lot of teenagers and adults back to Halloween, but it became a much darker Halloween. And I think that after the turn of the century, it's starting to swing a little bit back towards families, children, everybody. I mean, it hasn't given up any of its edge.
Right. And
but it's adding things that other people can do too.
Yeah, yes, I entirely agree. And now, you know, Sam and I are going to be hosting Rise of the Jack-o'-lantern at the end of October.
Right.
Now, there is a very interesting history to jack-o'-lanterns. It started in the 19th century?
That's right. The first jack-o'-lanterns were swamp gas. I mean, it was a phenomenon, these lights that would disappear and appear, and people would chase after them and get lost in the woods.
Oh my.
And because the first time we started to carve pumpkins in the 19th century, you're right, and put a candle in it, the first use of that was as a trick by guys, usually little boys, would carve out a pumpkin, put a face on it, put a candle in there, put it on a stick and wave it in front of somebody's window at night and scare the Jesus out of them, right?
Right.
And then they run away. So this idea of a light that runs away and disappears got associated with the carved pumpkin, and we had a carved pumpkin jack-o'-lantern, but it moved. It didn't stay still on a front porch until really 1900, early 20th century, when we thought of jack-o'-lanterns as things that are stationary. They sit.
And, I always had a question about Halloween. How did traditions like bobbing for apples and all of that come into the fore? And also dressing up. Like, when did all of that start?
The costumes, people first started dressing in costumes in the late Victorian era. The people in Victorian times loved to dress in costumes. They did it on lots of occasions, but they started doing it on Halloween because they first started celebrating Halloween, then having parties and putting on fancy dress. And the apples and the corn stalks and the pumpkins all came because Halloween was about bringing the outside inside as decoration for this kind of rural, country, fun holiday that they'd never celebrated before.
That is amazing. And before we did our interview, I told you off camera that I actually went online and looked at some of your interviews. You have so much fun with Halloween. You love it. It's so exciting. And I was paging through your book and I said, I've got to read this. I just want to show this to you once again. This one is Halloween Nation. Now, this is one of 5 books that you have authored. And just for the sake of our viewers, where could they find your book to purchase this?
Any online bookstore, or you can order it in your own bookstore and they'll get it.
Okay, that sounds great. Lesley Bannatyne, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. And now we're going to cut to Paranormal Provincetown, authored by our own Sam Baltrusis.
Ah, paradise. Welcome to Provincetown, Massachusetts. Known as the spot where the Pilgrims first set foot in the New World in 1620, this quiet fishing village located on the tip of Cape Cod is a popular tourist destination for both the living and the dead. Yes, human monsters once roamed Provincetown's picturesque and sand-swept streets. Our first stop is the Lancey Mansion on Commercial Street. Built by Benjamin Lancey for his mother in the late 1880s, the mansion was designed to emulate a Beacon Hill brownstone. Passers-by have spotted a lady in black, who reportedly peeks out of the mansion's cupola. Yes, it's the very spot where Lancey propped up his dead mother during the winter, as they patiently waited for the cemetery's ground to thaw. Over at the Victoria House on Standish Street is the former home to Provincetown's very own serial killer, Tony Chop Chop Costa. According to reports from this former bed and breakfast, guests would hear disembodied whispers throughout the house, and the occasional scream of a female voice emanating from Costa's old haunt, Room 4. Some believe that Costa may have tortured his victims in the Victoria House, similar to Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, before murdering, removing their hearts, and burying them in Truro. Yes, Costa was a heartless killer. For many more tales from the crypt, check out Paranormal Provincetown by author Sam Baltrusis, coming out in the fall of 2016. Yes, darkness lurks in the shadows of paradise.
So this is my book, Paranormal Provincetown. It's actually one of 3 books that I have coming out this season.
Wow, you've been busy. You've been busy.
I have Paranormal Provincetown, Haunted Boston Harbor, and then I also have 13 Most Haunted Crime Scenes.
Where do you find time to write all these books,
Well,
Sam?
I have written, so Paranormal Provincetown I wrote like 2 years ago, and then Haunted Boston Harbor was like 3 years ago. So it takes a while for the publisher to actually publish it. They decided to publish 3 books all at once.
Wow, I see. So it wasn't that you wrote all the books together. It takes a little bit of time, the whole process.
Exactly.
Of getting it out.
Yeah, so the crime scenes book, it's been tough writing about crime scenes because like a lot of these actual like horrible crimes happen, like the Lizzie Borden murder. Horrible things happen, but then of course the USS Salem, I included that in the crime scenes book. Now, as you know, like there actually were no actual crimes on the USS Salem, except for the ghosts supposedly are out for blood.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, on the ship, I know when we first went there, I thought, oh, this is just folklore. And then when I started talking to the people who actually worked on the ship, they're like, no, we've heard sound. And I was really kind of spooked a little bit walking underneath on all the, on the different landings. and I wanted to get out of there. I wasn't joking. It was a little creepy.
So within my first hour on the USS Salem, because I've been spending a lot of time because I'm working on Ghost Ship Harbor.
Right.
Within the first hour, I ran into a ghost kid who spoke Greek. And when I ran into, like, I'm sensitive to the paranormal, so I write about the ghosts. And it was a little kid, and I didn't realize the whole like backstory with the 400 dead bodies being put on and kept in the USS Salem.
Right.
And supposedly there's a lot of people have encountered Greek-speaking ghosts.
I heard that, and then I spoke to there was one lady, she works there by herself sometimes, and she said she heard like footsteps, and then when she went out of her office and there was nothing there. And I said, are you sure? She said, I'm positive. And she said this has happened several times. And then there were a couple of ladies who had scratches on them when they went into the butter room.
Yeah, so to give you some backstory, so with the woman you're talking about, they had a haunted attraction years ago, and there was a bunch of teen girls were banging on the wardroom pantry, and there was freezers, and they were banging on it, and apparently she saw scratches appear on these girls. So the place is very haunted. As I say in the next clip, or the final clip, is don't piss off the ghosts.
Don't do it.
So, Sharon, what are you doing for Halloween?
Well, we're going to be doing Rides of the Jack-O-Lantern, the 4-day event. So we're going to be very, very busy. And Sam, you've got to teach me how to carve the pumpkin. Are you afraid to have me hold a knife?
I am, yeah. So basically we're going to give Sharon one of those like child-proof knives.
I need a child-proof one.
I am an expert when it comes to carving pumpkins, so I will show you, I will guide you. But I'm very excited. So it's the last 4 days. Sharon's going to be working the night. I'm going to be working the daytime. And then I'm going to be running to Ghost Ship Harbor. And then on the 30th, which is the Sunday, I'm going to Topsfield to work with Kathryn on the Haunting of Witch Hill. So I have a lot coming up in October. I'm hoping to see most of you on my journey throughout my favorite time of the year. I do love this time of year, and I especially like the old school. I love the conversation you had with Lesley regarding kind of the throwback to old school Halloween.
Yeah, and just having fun. What was amazing about Lesley is that she really loves what she does. She's been writing about it for 25 years. 25 years, she loves it.
So our final clip is going to be the ghost of the USS Salem. So it's fantastic. Thank you so much for having this Halloween special.
It was so much fun. See you later.
See ya.
Welcome to Ghost Ship Harbor. My name is Sam Baltrusis. I'm the author of 7 historical-based ghost books, including 2 that features the haunted vessel you're on now, the USS Salem. Launched on March 25th, 1947 in Quincy, and nicknamed the Sea Witch by her crew, the USS Salem never saw combat, but certainly was a harbinger of death. In fact, the area beneath the mess hall became a makeshift morgue during the earthquake off the coast of Greece in 1953, and it's estimated that at least 400 dead bodies were kept on the vessel. On board, there's a motley crew of resident ghosts, including the Burning Man, who supposedly smells like death and hides in the berthing area beneath the 3rd mess hall, where the bodies were kept during the Ionian earthquake. There's also a ghost girl who speaks Greek, a salty sea captain, a growling devil dog, a cook who likes to keep the kitchen in order, and a man named John, who reportedly gives tours of the USS Salem in the afterlife. There's one more. He's an angry sentinel spirit known to get aggressive if you disrespect the Sea Witch. His nickname? Captain Pipes. My advice to you? Don't piss off
Captain Pipes.
Hi, my name is Rachel Hoffman. I'm from Paranormal Expeditions, and I'm aboard the USS Salem right now, where I've had about 6 years worth of experiences. Some are pretty horrific, depending on how much you provoke the spirits on board. And we will be here through the month of October, trying to invite you into our little world, and hopefully it doesn't scare you too much.
A lot of bodies brought aboard the ship. A lot of people
A lot of people died on that island, and they brought some bodies on the, into the operating room, and they died. They had to put them in the freezers down below. The CPO mess is, you've heard strange noise coming out of there, and you go in there, there's nobody in there. A couple of years ago at Halloween, some of the girls said that they had scratches, and they were in the wardroom pantry. They felt they had scratches on them after.
So have you had any experiences with the Greek ghost on this vessel?
Yes, and I'm not gonna talk about it.